Mm. Got it.
All right.
Got it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Block Builder Club Series 2 Electric Block Glue quick check-in and hangout. I just wanted to touch base. I feel like we're 6 months into something and I haven't seen a lot of faces. And I wanted to see some faces, or at least make sure to touch base with folks to see how they're doing with their squares. For those of you that did one versus two, comparing them if you like. And so we'll talk about all of that up first. And then after that, Chris is going to talk about gauge and blocking because it's super important if you're making the wrap. If you are not making the wrap or any of the, or I have to say, Denise, your big chugs of wine are giving me life right now. I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that view. So Chris does a better job than any of us at getting things to be the right size. So he's going to talk a little. Oh, and everybody, you're welcome to keep your mics open, but if there's stuff in the background, maybe mute them and jump back on, up to you. So Chris is going to talk a little bit about gauge and blocking to get when you need things to be exactly the same size. So he's going to do that. And then I'm just going to do a little refresher, just a little reminder about seaming. So we'll talk whip stitch or mattress stitch, your choice, and then single crochet for those that are doing crochet, although you could crochet either one of them. That's it. That's all we're doing, just a little check-in. So first, why don't we just, like, does anybody have any questions, first of all? No? We're all good? All right. So what about, like, how do you feel like it's going so far? First of all, how are people, are you able to do one a month? Do you care about doing one a month? Or are you just like, I'll get to it when I get to it? Denise, since you're up forward, why don't you start?
I haven't really been doing one a month. I started doing one a month, but I'm kind of behind right now.
There's no behind. Like, I mean, I'm just curious how people work. You know, and this whole exercise is about the process and about learning skills. So there's not really a timetable, but I was just curious. Was there anything unexpected so far? Has there been anything that's been surprising or challenging or?
No, this is my second year doing it too.
Oh, good. Now, how do you feel like this one compares with the last? Just similar?
Good. They're both been really good.
All right. Well, no notes. I'll take it. Thank you, Denise. Jen, you always have something to say. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so I think I posted. I went through a lull and at the end of the year, like Q3 2022, I did start spinning. So I was doing some other things. And so I honestly, you guys, I did in February, I did 5 blocks and I'm on my 6th. So I really got back into it, and it was really helpful to get, I got so inspired by the Advent that I wanted to do the blocks all in the Advent colors, and you release some more yarn. So it was fantastic. So my struggle is with, I don't want to say it's with gauge because I'm not doing gauge swatches. I did one, I did my first one. I had a lot of trouble with gauge in the first Block Builder series. I didn't care. I made a blanket. There's one block that's like wonky in this blanket, and the rest were pretty much okay. But I am thoroughly enjoying this. I'm thoroughly enjoying learning the new stitches, and I'm having a lot of fun myself with like doing different color.
Oh, that's so
colors
pretty. That's so pretty.
And trying, new things with colors. So I think it's like I did a border on this one.
That's really pretty.
And this one is a little small, so I'm interested in Chris helping me because I've blocked it twice and I can't get it to stretch.
Maybe you need to add another like little edging.
Maybe I add another border or something.
Yeah,
right?
and that's something else we can talk. So maybe this is a good time to, and Christina, I want to check in with you, and I see a couple other people have jumped on, but I feel like this might be a good time maybe to just talk blocking. We can come back to checking in and seaming. So Chris, why don't you take the wheel?
I'm happy to. The first thing I want to say about blocking is that for a project like this, it's really just about getting things to be the same size. Even though it's written to be 30 inches, 4 inches, for something that's squares, you're just looking to get them the same size. For some of them, it might be a bit more of a tug. For some of them, less tug. A lot of people, when they hear the word blocking, they think they have to stretch something, you know, within centimeters of its life, like stretch it out. The answer is no. A lot of times when I do blocking, I've got my like measurements for the square. I wet block, I do all of that stuff, let it soak, roll it up in a towel, burrito style. I pin it out, and if it's bigger than that, keep in mind, as it dries, it's going to shrink. So if you're freaking out that, you know, you pull something out of the sink that's this big, it might go down smaller. It's hard to get things to block smaller than they want to be. It's way easier to make them bigger. But it's really consistency for something that's not a fitted garment. Okay, that said, what do you do if they're not the same size? Sometimes you can do a little bit of rob Peter to pay Paul. So if it's too short, you can stretch it this way, it'll come in. If it's too tall, you can stretch this way and make it come that way, which might mean that you have to add, as Vicki was saying, a border at some point. The other thing you can do is reblock everything later to be the same size as the smallest one. Jen, I hear you saying you've got one that's a little shy.
Yeah.
The other ones, they might shrink down. You might have pulled them out a little bit more than they needed to be, and just to get them to be a consistent size, you might need to do that.
Okay.
So shy of blocking, Vicki, how do you get something to always be the same size? A lot of it is just that experience of what does it feel like when you're knitting it? And a lot of times I always knit on circs. I will slide it onto the cable and do this. How do I think? Is it going to stretch a lot? Is it going to stretch a little? What did it do last time when I used the same yarn? And if you know that you're going to get an extra inch stretching it out, when it's relaxed on the cable, it needs to be an inch narrower than it typically would be. For the blocks we've been doing, that's about the ease that I feel. Like if I measure it relaxed, unblocked, about an inch shorter, and maybe a half an inch to the top, I can get a little bit more that way, and it tends to open up much more this way. And that's just sort of how I go.
We're working with lace, and that's finicky, right? Because you're working with negative space. So a lot of this, there's a lot of art. It's part art and part science.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's part of it. And if you need to take out some rows, take out some rows. I want people to not feel like they have to do the exact amount of rows. Now, with something like this block, it's a bunch of squares, so you need to finish a repeat. But, you know, with something like this, not a big deal. Like maybe your stripe pattern will be different, but so there's that. The other thing that helps some people is if you take a, do you guys have those blocking mats? You know what I'm talking about? Okay,
Yes.
everybody knows. I'm going to grab one just in case anybody watches this later and they don't know. So back in the day, I think it was Cocoa Nets, but they stopped doing it. They had the mats that had the grid on them, and I did not get one, and I've been kicking myself forever. And one of these days, I'm just going to have them manufactured. But if you have one that's kind of sacrificial, it will work. It might work for this one. If not, you might have to stick a couple together. But if you take a ruler and a Sharpie or whatever and make that 10 by 10 square, then you can just use that. And if it fits within that, that doesn't mean when you take it off that it's not going to inhale or exhale, but at least you're doing the same thing for everything. Because, and Chris used that word ease, in case folks aren't familiar with that term, it's something that we do in knitting and in sewing and in crochet. And that just means either like easing up the fabric or stretching it a little bit so that it'll fit, so that it'll meet the size that it needs to meet. It's a term that's used a lot when you're sewing and making like collars or something, where you have to sort of stretch out when you're working with knits, stretch out part of it so everything will fit. That's a big part of working with any form of textile. And it's, you know, it's not an exact science. And look, this isn't like quilting where we're like, here's like 7 different quilt blocks or 12 different quilt blocks we're giving you, and you can square them all off. You can just cut them all so they're all the size. That's not how knitting works. And we could make it so that you had all different colors of the same stitch pattern and it would be a lot easier, but then that wouldn't be a club. So there's a little bit, it's just a little bit of like, okay, let's see what we can do to make this work. But if you do want them to be the size, like you should check your gauge and then experiment. I agree with Chris that most of these you can easily get another inch of give because they're lace, and then, you know, quite a bit this way as well. So that's sort of where a starting point. I'm thinking about for BBC 3, I don't know what we're doing or what size or whatever, but I don't know if y'all have seen the, if you've seen the, I don't even know what they're called. You see them for granny squares, and they're like little plastic squares that have 4 dowels in them, and they slide the granny squares over just to block them. Like they screw in their dowels. And I'm thinking about, we have a laser cutter at the studio. I was thinking about trying to figure out if there was one that specifically for the size that we need. We'd have to figure out the dowel thing. I don't really know yet, but if that might be a tool that people would be interested in. So you could just, you know, you can't just slide them all on if they don't have holes. So that's going to be another thing. I need to give it some thought because it's perfect for granny squares, but yeah, that's kind of it. Chris, do you have a preferred method of blocking for these? Do you find that just, you know, soaking, like you said, and burrito wrapping? Do you think steaming works better? What's your take on that?
I tell you, I always do a soak block for the simple reason that I feel at some point I'm gonna have to wash it. If it's a blanket, I'm gonna drop a piece of pizza on it. If it's a scarf, it's gonna drop in the mud. And it's going to end up with that kind of care anyway. So I feel like that's the way that I'm gonna treat it. And it also gives me that introduction to, is one edge tighter? Sometimes I cast off a little tight and that needs a little extra tug. Things like that.
Yeah.
So I do have the blocks with the
you have them,
but I can't put them together. I can never figure out 1, 2, 3. It doesn't. I think I have to go in a semicircle. I don't know how it works, but this really does help. Is it good to block like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, you know, wider and taller, knowing that it's going to shrink the minute I take those pins out? Or do you do it exactly at the 10-inch mark?
I do it at the 10-inch mark with the thought that if it pops in a little bit, it's going to pop in a little bit for all of them.
Okay.
It's like I'm aiming at that 10 inches. The other thing that I do is, you know, it's wet, I pin it out. I come back and visit it a couple of times. And sometimes you'll see the edges start to do that scalloping thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will take my fingers like I'm kneading bread and I will push it out. I'll put in extra pins if I want. Sometimes I'll even spray bottle the edges and do a little bit like that because I don't want it to have those kinds of scallops.
Okay. Thank
Sometimes
you.
I'll even unpin it and turn it over.
Oh,
It's,
hadn't done that. That's a great tip. Thank you.
you know, usually you want the right side up because you want the texture to show. But certainly when I'm blocking out big shawls, getting a straight edge even with wires sometimes is wonky. I'll pin it out. I will, you know, go garden for an hour and I'll come back and get down and look at it to see if it's really in a line. See if the stripes are really striping, because a lot of times you'll start to see the stripes wander as it dries. And you just kind of scoot it around.
Okay.
And it's what makes it look real happy.
Does
So
anybody
for-
have any? Oh,
I'm sorry, real quickly,
No,
for
keep going.
block 6, that I think it's the tulip, trico tulips. I was going to do, you know, like one tulip here in blue and another tulip here in purple. I was just gonna like randomly do some other colors. I didn't like the way the back looked. And I know this is gonna be a wrap, so you can see front and back depending on how you're using it. So I was thinking about duplicate stitching, you know, one tulip here, one tulip here, one tulip here in the different colors. Would you block before, or would you duplicate stitch and then block?
I would probably block before so that you have a flat or, you know, you have a clean surface,
Okay.
but you will most likely need to go over it again, steam it or, you know, whatever. I'm just gonna bring up so we know what we're looking at. Let me share the screen for a second.
I'm going to add something to that. A lot of these lace patterns, because they're pulling the stitches in different directions, they really do change when they're floating in the water and they're doing all their like readjusting of the individual tension between the stitches. So I 100% agree. I would block it first so that the tension of the little area that you're going to do the duplicate stitch on is sort of established and doesn't get wacky after you've done the duplicate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. I love the idea. We have been kind of obsessed with embroidering on knitwear in the studio, well, on the boards, and we were hoping to do that soon, but I love the idea. I know you were saying duplicate stitch so you could, you know, just mock it, but it would also be really cool to do other stitches on top of the tulips, you know, do little, you know, decorative stuff. I love that idea. I think that would be super fun. You could even use something lighter. You could the thing that's great about this particular yarn, either of the Montoya Merinos, is that they're plied so that you can pull 2-3 plies out and you can embroider with them. Or you can, of course, use embroidery floss or whatever, but it's nice. If you use embroidery floss, I would recommend going to get a merino wool, you know, floss, just so that things don't get wonky, especially if you end up having to wash it. But if you're okay with colors, doesn't have to be our yarn. Well, there's a lot of yarns that ply. You could do that. You could even use, you know, sock yarn or something lighter, you know, and just have fun with it. I think that would be really fun. It might be really cool to do that as a decorative, like, overlay of seaming too, like make it all, you know, purposeful, whether it's, you know, like a branch stitch or a chain stitch or whatever, if you did it along all the lines. I think it could be really fun and sort of play into this very like quilty looking piece.
Very cool. Great ideas. Thank you.
All right, let's do a little check-in. Melissa, checking in on you. How's it going for you?
Hi, I'm doing good. I'm doing the knit and the crochet,
Oh,
but I haven't started doing crochet yet. So I just started block 6, kind of last night and this morning. So I had what I thought would be a good idea to do, what the other lady was saying, the tulips a different color. So I thought I'm using like I'm doing the gray, teal, and green. And then I've also got the multi one. So I haven't gotten very far along, but I have 11 bobbins and trying to get this. I mean, you probably can't see very well.
You're in Tarja lacing it.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I'm beginning to think I'd lost my mind when I thought this would be
You
fun.
are hardcore. Go you. I can't wait to see what that looks like.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking duplicate stitch would have definitely been a better way to go.
Well, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. I mean, that will give you sort of a bulkier, you know, fabric. So there's pros and cons to that, but much less ends to weave probably.
Yes, yes. So we'll see if I've driven myself crazy by the end of this block or not, because I've only got about half an inch.
Well, please check in. We'll do a mental health check-in.
Sounds good. Well, I am enjoying it. This is my first one to do. I should have done the first one, but I had a lot of other projects I was working on. So I am really enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to starting the crochet versions as well.
Oh, good. Excellent. Is everybody here thinking about doing the wrap, or are you doing some of the smaller projects, or none at all? You're just going to collect the blocks and have it be a practice?
I'm gonna do a wrap.
You're gonna do a wrap? Jen, you too?
Me too. Yep.
Denise, what do you think?
I'm doing the wrap too.
You are too?
Yeah.
Christina, Caddy, Lena, are any of you up to talking? Are you all thinking about doing the wrap? Is anybody doing the alternative patterns that we include?
For me,
I
so far,
asked.
I'm collecting patterns.
I'm sorry?
For me, so far, I'm just collecting patterns, reading the patterns, and then doing the blocks when I'm able to get to them behind the other things that I'm already committed to do.
Yeah, there is no time frame.
Yep.
But if nobody's making the alternative projects, maybe for the next round, we won't include that. We'll do something else. So that's more of why I'm asking. What about Caddy? What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing the wrap too.
Okay. And then there's one more, Lena.
Yes, I'm also doing
Doing
the
the wrap?
wrap.
Okay.
And crocheting it. But yeah, doing the wrap.
Okay. Well, at the end, towards the end, we're going to talk about finishing. Like we'll talk about tassels and about fringe if you want to add that. We'll see what else we can come up with. But for the rest of our time today, or at least a little bit of it, I'd like to just go over some seaming, not reinventing the wheel, but just a little reminder. So I'm going to pin the other camera. Okay. So the first one that we are going to be focused on is the knit version. There's no real order that you need to do this in. We tried to, when we rolled them out, we tried to make it so that there would be a stable one next to a less stable one as far as the negative space went. But really, it's just, as Chris was saying when he was talking about blocking, some require a little more stretching, some a little more scrunching. And when you're ultimately piecing these together, just make them work, let them find a buddy, So we started sewing together ours, and I wanted to, regardless of if you're knitting, crocheting, I highly recommend getting something like this. You can get these at most craft stores. I think they're just made by Clover. They're for fabric usually. Or we have these that I believe we still have, actually, I know we still have these on our website at yarnyay.com, but your local yarn store would have them too. These are like those hair clips from the 90s, the little baby hair clips, but they've reemerged as,
Vicky,
yes?
I'm not seeing any of these.
You're not seeing any of the what?
I'm not seeing any of these you're referring to. I'm seeing your picture and the background behind you.
Are you not, can you guys not see the pinned photo or the pinned video with?
No, I see you talking.
Oh, why is that?
I see it if you go to like gallery view, but it's a little square.
I see it too in gallery view.
Yeah, it's iPhone and it's like in gallery view. So you got to go to the top of Zoom and click on the different views. And it also depends if you're on a mobile device or a computer.
Yeah, so the phone is that one. I had it on speaker and I pinned it though. That should have worked. How about spotlight for everyone? Does that work?
There
Yes.
it is.
All right.
Yes.
Ooh. You can't take me down, technology. All right, I'm going to do it all again then. So these are the squares that we're working with. Like I was saying, we chose them to go together just based on the ones that really sort of fit or could stretch together the best. And you really just, do it any way that makes you happy. We're using 3 different colors, the Leche and the Meow Wolf. Actually, it's 4 different colors. And the Roswell, and then we've got our really fun little hot succulent. And so I was just alternating them. But okay, so these are the things that I was talking about when nobody could see me. So I use these for sewing. I use these for kind of everything. These are just great little clips. They're made for fabric though. So sometimes these work better. So these are the Cocoa Knits claw clips. Those of you that subscribe to our monthly box as well got them in the box a couple months ago, I think. But we still have some more left on the website if you're interested, but you can also find them at your local yarn shop usually too. So wherever you can, or honestly, you can probably find them in the hair department at the grocery store. I don't know, but I'm sure. But something like that, especially, I need to move my laptop back, especially for a project like this where you are trying to get it to fit. It really helps, especially if you need to stretch it, to have something hold stable. So if you just put a clip at least close to both ends and one in the center, then you don't have to worry about seaming together and accidentally bunching some up or stretching a part out. You'll get a much more even seam. So that makes it super simple. For something like this, because it's so, busy, it doesn't actually really matter how clean of a seaming job you do, because you're not going to see it. And if you decide to do something decorative over, like a chain stitch or whatever, it makes it all moot. So you could literally just whip stitch. So I'm going to show you whip stitch, and I'm going to show you mattress stitch. We are using, for this one, we decided that we would use the color that this is the hot succulent that has all of the other colors as our seaming color. I would just choose one. Whatever works for you, but I would be consistent so that you don't have seams in all different colors. Unless that's your thing, then you should do it. But I'm going to use this hot pink just so you can see it a little bit better. So usually what I do is, so this is right sides are up, side by side, or this is end to end. I usually come up from the wrong side, and I'll start a couple inches before, or below rather, where I'm going to start. So basically what I'm doing is I'm pre-weaving in an end. That way you don't have to worry about knots poking through. So just like you would weave in an end, I mean, maybe not just like, because we're not going to go back and forth, although you absolutely could. And for a blanket, I probably would go back and forth because of the sort of tugging that happens. I'm not too worried about it for this type of project. So you just want to pre-weave in your end. This over. Okay. So now I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit. I think the answer is no, I cannot. So I will hold it up. All right. So to whip stitch, it's really easy. All you need to do is you come up from one side and you whip around to the other side, and you would just pick up a loop and pull through. And so again, you whip over, go to the next loop, and I'm just going over one of the legs, and you pull. Now, obviously I'm using a contrasting color so you can see it a little bit, but because we're working with kind of a mushy fabric and we're working with a bunch of colors, again, you don't have to be super precise. Okay, so that is how you would whip stitch. And you can see closely here, That's what Becky did this for me. That's what she did for here. And I actually kind of dig it. It kind of almost gives it a seed stitch look. But if that is not your gig, you can work from ladder to ladder. So because this is end to end, it's going to look a little bit different than it would if you were working side to side. So I kind of, it's like with everything else, it's a make it work moment. So you see how there is, let me bring this closer. See how there is the top of one stitch and the bottom of the other. So essentially you're going underneath, you're coming up through that V. Ooh, my eyes used to be better. Okay. And then you'll pull through. Probably could have used a shorter piece of yarn. And then you want to mirror that on the opposite side. So in this way, you're creating a little zigzag. So on this side, because this is a cast on end versus the bind off edge that we were working on the other, it's going to look a little different. So this is another make it work moment. I would just find that bottom leg. Since we're not seeing, you sort of see the V's, but it's not the same. I would just find that leg and I would move over to there. I'm going to do a couple more just so you can see the difference in what the whip stitch looks like. And again, you know, I'm using a contrast color. Now there's another way you can do it. So I've been going through the V's, and that's going to have like the minimal, that's going to have a little line from this leg. It's going to, you know, butt them up really nicely. You also could go underneath. So here's the loop. You see the V here? You could also do it where you go underneath the ladders below the stitch. I don't like that for this project because what that does is it folds the fabric in, which is perfectly lovely for a lot of projects. It gives it that sort of, you know, when you sew two pieces of fabric together inside out and you turn it right side out. I don't think that's as great for this because, as somebody else said, it's a wrap. You will see a little bit of the backside. It's nice to have a flatter piece. So that's why I chose, even though it's a little fussy, I chose to go, I'm just going down one stitch, the top of the stitch, if I'm looking at it, and then up from the other one. And then one more time, I'll show you on this side, we don't have that same option. So I'm just taking one of the legs, and give yourself license to do that. You know, just trust yourself. It doesn't have to be, you know, according to, well, don't do what I just did. I just knotted the yarn. It doesn't have to be according to any rules. Just get it to where you're happy with it. So now you can see if I'm going to lower it this way. So now you can see this is whip stitch, so pretty visible. This is mattress stitch. You really can't see it. I mean, you can see it a little bit because of the pink yarn, but you really can't see it otherwise. So that is a little seaming refresher for the knit version. Before I move on to crochet, are there any questions? Nope, we good? Okay. The crochet version, I would just straight up single crochet it together. Now you could also crochet the knit ones together. It just might get a little bit bulky because of the weight of yarn we're using. So this one, our crochet pieces are significantly more open weave. We did a lot more negative space. So there's more tugging involved, and we have not steamed this. I should also say that. That is another key thing. Steaming it with either a regular steamer or a steam iron after the fact is crucial for a piece like this, because you're asking a lot of these fabrics. They have different stitch counts, they have different, you know, negative space ratios. You know, so you have to sort of like give it all the love that you can. So this is what the front side looks like unblocked. And this is, and the back side, you can fully see the seams. So this one, it's really going to have more of that kind of Franken quilt look. I lean into that kind of thing. I kind of dig it. But if that's something that you're not into, I would suggest moving over to mattress stitch for the crochet ones as well. But for this, it's really easy. You could also slip stitch. I just find that slip stitch with crochet is a bit too tight, especially when you're working with lace pieces. There's not a lot of give. And so you might end up finding that your pieces start to tighten at the bottom, which will cause some gathering. Okay, so again, so this one I would actually do right sides together. Unless you want your seam to show, and then you would do it wrong sides together. So again, these clips, save the day. And I probably don't need one to start. Okay, so this one is a good example of, we're going to have to just, you know, via con dia. So we're just going to have to see how it goes, because the corner of this one is all chains. That's sort of what this one is too, but it's got a little bit, it's actually got a full double crochet. So I would just, you know, find a corner, pick a corner, light a candle, and go for it. So I'm using, or decided to use the multicolor that had all the colors in it. Same goes for this though. You can use whatever makes you happy. There's a couple ways you can do it. This hook is way too big. Here we go. Oh, you want to use, that's another note. So you want to use the hook that's the exact same size as what you used to crochet your squares. Knitters, if you decide that you want to crochet your knit squares together, I would look at the millimeters on your knitting needles and just use the crochet hook, or at least try using the crochet hook that has the same millimeters. Gauge is very different with crochet. It's very, very different amongst different people. So start there. If you don't like how your seam's looking with that size, go up or go down from one. So you can either join with a single crochet or you can join and chain. There are different schools of thought of what's better. I don't actually have a preference. So I've inserted my hook through the first stitch, and I'm going underneath all of the loops of the stitches first, rather. All right, I've got my slip knot, pulling it through. Now, if we were just single crocheting a piece together, you would do a chain one, and then you would, you know, move on from there. It's not all that necessary to chain one here. It's not going to make a big difference. If it makes you happy, by all means do it. It's real simple, but it does not count here as a stitch. So you're going to insert in that same place that you were. And if you do go in the same place, you will need to chain one, or else you'll undo your work. And then you yarn over, you pull through, and then you yarn over and pull through 2 loops. I'm going to do that again. Okay, so I'm going into the next. So for here, that's this, you know, chain, but here I'm going through, actually it's also a chain. It's about to be a double crochet. It's right before. All right, so I'm going through both pieces. You yarn over, you pull through, and that gets you in the position that you need to. And then you finish the single crochet by yarning over and pulling through 2. And you would just continue that all the way across. And you'll get something that looks like this. Now, if you wanted to use, pull that out. If you later decided that, I didn't actually try this first, so we'll see. We'll see what this looks like. But this is an end that we'll pretend that we're not seeing. If you decided that you really didn't like the kind of Franken-stitching look, I'm going in at a random point. You would start at an end, but it'll just be easier to see. It might be fun to try, and ignore this, I would pull that through, to try doing some chain stitching. So See if I can do this so you can see it. You're going to insert the hook through the seam, yarn over, and then you pull it through the seam, and then you pull it through that last loop. Now, it's easier to do this without a tripod, and it also helps to have a table, but you can already see what that's doing. See if I can bring it closer. It's creating a visible chain. It's just a nice little detailing. Let me do a couple more so you can get a better idea. It would be really fun to do a completely different color, like a pop color, a neon yellow or something. Or you could go all classy like and do a charcoal. But just something to give it a little extra personality. Doing this does not take the place of a seam. The seam is still on the back. It also doesn't add a ton of bulk because you're just doing an overlay. I feel like this is kind of blurry. So it's just something that you can have fun with, play with. It would also be fun to do some hand embroidery. Just treat these like they are sort of little pieces of history, like a quilter would. That's what I think of these block projects as. All right. Does anybody have any questions on either one of those methods or anything else? I'm going to see.
I'd love that chain, that surface crochet over the seam.
Yeah, I should have had a sample for you where you could see it better. It's not ideal with but I think it would be really fun. And maybe not even for every scene. It might be neat to do little like crosshatch, like just at the corners, do big X's or something. I just think it would be a really nice little detail. Let me see, where is.
And you could overlay that on the knit
Absolutely
themes as well, right? That's really cool.
Absolutely.
I really like
I
that
think
idea.
that would be really neat. I actually use chain stitch for a lot on knitting. That's what I do all of my why is that going to speaker? I don't know why that's doing that. I actually do all of my like monogramming with chain stitch for kids stuff, that kind of thing. I just really think it's sweet. And it is a really easy way to embellish all kinds of things. So yeah, for sure. Did anybody else have any questions? I saw a couple new people came in since we started. All right, for those of you that came in, oh, go ahead.
Just really quick in my mind, because I kind of been coming obsessed with join as you go with my granny squares.
Yeah.
Is there any way with the crochet blocks to do a join as you go or no? Like I've been trying to like experiment a little bit.
It would be so hard with this because they're all completely different. It could be done, but you would need to, it would take some engineering. I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
I mean, I could imagine picking up the right number of stitches with a new color to start the next block, and ending up with long strips that you would seam together. Yeah, connecting it the other way as you go, like the sides, that kind of makes my brain Charlie horse.
But if you figure it out, by all means, please do all the sharing. Thought I had an embroidery thing. For those of you that came in late, we covered blocking and seaming, and it's being recorded, and I will put this up on YouTube after this. Okay, so tomorrow, no, not tomorrow. Today is the 27th, 28th. So in a couple of days, block 7 will come out, and then we're sort of like on the downslope. So what, if any, other check-ins would you feel that it would be helpful to have over the next 6 months? Would you like to just hang out and make squares? Would you like another check-in on assembly? Is there anything that I'm not thinking of that might be helpful? Okay, I'm gonna take that as no notes also.
I definitely think I love the seaming aspect of it. I think it was about 7 or 8 blocks in where I finally got the seaming down where it was invisible. I was doing the invisible seaming from the first block builder.
Yeah.
So I think reinforcing of that maybe a little bit later in the process, since we're all doing the a lot of us are doing the whole project. I think it'd be fun to all of us try it.
Yeah,
at the end.
maybe we need to have a block party. We need to have a little assembly
There you go.
situation. Obviously, we probably wouldn't get more than one done, but at least to just sort of
Yeah.
pick that off. That's something that maybe we could do that in like month 10 or something where people really have a chance to at least have 4 made, enough to
Yeah.
start seaming. You know, that could be fun.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Well, that's all I have. If anybody needs anything, though, we're here.
Can I just say, I really appreciate, I stare at my blanket from the first block builder because it's on the back of my couch, and I stare at that daily because as I sit at my kitchen table, and I stare at those stitches and I'm like, I could do a sleeve in that, or I could do, this would be
Oh,
great for
that's neat.
paneling. It's just an inspiration. Like this whole other 12 is all new stitches, and it's very inspirational. So thank you for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work, but it's really, really inspirational. So thank you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that. And yeah, that's what we were hoping. We were hoping to give you a painter's palette, you know, where you can sort of see what things, because who does swatches like this? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, some Claire Parks. Okay, who besides Claire Parks does swatches like this, right? But that you can really see what the fabric looks like when you have a 10 by 10. So now you have it.
Right.
You know, it's like this would make an amazing bathing suit cover up. You know, it's like, oh, like how sweet would this be for a little girl's dress over like a little slip? Or, you know, so and it's really nice to, even if you decide like this is not something you want to wear or whatever, you do have sort of this living, you know, huge swatch book essentially.
Exactly. So thank you.
No, thank you. And thanks for always being here. And good night to that baby he's got the tired wiggles. I know those. It is witching hour, girl. Good job even showing up. All right, everyone. Well, if you have any questions, as always, you can email support@yarnyay.com. You can post in the group. You know, tag us on the Instagrams, all of the things. One last question, just because I have this sort of small focal group. Would you find it at all? Where do you all check in on the Yarnyay group? Those are here that are here. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Are you guys cool with Facebook, or would you like it if there were group boards on the Yarnyay website, like just as a separate thing? Or is that just like another place to go? Think on it, because, you know, people are abandoning Facebook ship like crazy. And so we just want to see where everybody's comfortable. We wouldn't get rid of one for the other one. It would just be another place.
See, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I have just narrowed Facebook down to what I need and what I like. I don't get all the noise that I think that a lot of people get. That's why they're jumping. And I know there's other reasons, of course, and I'm all for any reason. But if you do a little 5-minute, 10-minute cleanup, I see Yarnyay. I see my, core friend group. I see some jewelry making and some fiber making. That's all I see. I don't see the noise. So I enjoy Facebook because I think I don't know, maybe I have the magic sauce or something.
I mean,
but I have narrowed it to only what I want to see.
I think social media in general isn't for everyone. And so taking it off platform, I was trying to figure out if that was something that was even worthwhile, because then you would be able to go back to different threads, because we can't do threads in Facebook groups.
Yeah, true.
but you could start a new thread for Block Builder 2. And so all of the stuff would be in one place. I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I would definitely wouldn't get rid of one for the other, but it might be nice for archival reasons in case Meta implodes at any point in time. So I
Which
don't know.
could happen.
Yeah, it's fair. It's a fair point. So anyways, I just thought that I would throw it out there to see. I'll ask a couple other groups as well and see where we're at. So that was just a side note. Thank you for indulging me. And I will be looking for photos of your squares, and as you start seeing them for sharing. We have now closed Block Builder Club 2. So folks can't subscribe until we open it up for 3. Again, since we're halfway through, it's kind of late to get started from the beginning and catch up. So we'll open it up again in August, because September is when the next one would start. So tell a friend then, but until then, enjoy it. All right, everyone, have a great night, and I will see you soon on the boards or elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.